skirting shores, thinking world flat. I'm with the island girls in celebration of new religion. Nobody led me or said this way. I sailed alone on makeshift raft with wind as companion. Fate for deliverance, confidence enough to assess new disposition. Seekers of lost paradise may seem fools to those who never sought the other world. Welcome to Momentary Zen with Zen Garcia. Visit www.fallenangels.tv. You're listening to Revolution Radio.
Hello and welcome, friends. It's always a great honor and a pleasure to be here with you for another show. It's we can not ever overlook the kind of blessing that we, especially here in America, even though things are, you know, crazy and inflation's out of control and people are having to spend more money than usual um, to keep up with the prices, the quality of life that we have been used to. But we are so fortunate, and I hope that you recognize this, especially if you look at the other parts of the world and the prophecy that we've been speaking about, talking about, and covering for a very long time that told us about Zechariah 12, that Jerusalem would be a cup of trembling amongst the nations, and how Christ told us, with regard to the fig tree generation, that there would be commotions, wars, and rumors of wars, earthquakes, famines, pestilences, and the waves of the sea roaring, that there would be deception and also retribution, in that people would hate those that love the Messiah and love truth and that speak the truth and try to share it with others. That we would live at a time when not only was the truth not appreciated, but it would be largely condemned, and those that were knowledgeable about it, that they would become persecuted in various manners. And it always begins with, truth is always attacked, and the messengers of truth are always attacked as well. And now the things that the mainstream and majority opinion, the things that they are condemning and coming after in regard to truth, is just being expanded to such degree. I mean, you cannot speak about anything anymore. It is crazy and it's unfortunate. Um, like when it comes to diet, uh, healthy living, even changing lifestyle so that you can benefit, and just sharing discussion with others, that this is becoming it's just the mainstream is not going to allow independent free speech. And that's unfortunate because, well, I don't know if you remember, but I've been utilizing this platform for a very long time. And back in 2007, this was a bastion, a beacon for freedom and alternative opinion and for independent voices. And that's why I believe many people flocked to YouTube and came to this platform to speak their minds and share their opinions. And they were able to talk about things that were not being revealed anywhere else. And back then, there was no crackdown on discussion. I mean, you were able to share and introspect and come to conclusion and um, share opinion with others that the world is so very different now. And I realize also that I'm getting so much older that um oh, and also just know that we are going to be doing an Ask Me Anything show very quickly, and I'm going to take all live questions. And so those of you that are in the chat and have access to the chat, go ahead and start placing your questions there, sharing them. I know you're a few minutes behind me, so when you catch up to the live stream, if you have questions or comments, or this is going to be a total interactive dialogue, and I believe that those of you that join us in chat and that follow us in the work that we do, you are without a doubt some of the most wise people, and that the Most High has blessed you to be wisdom keepers and to be the holders of the secrets, and that you are doing the work of watchmen and watchwomen everywhere, wherever you may be, and that this platform where we come together, weekly, over the different times that we do on Revolution Radio and Truth Frequency Radio, that we are encouraging, empowering, and blessing one another with insight. And so I do want to spend more time bringing forth the the things that all of you have come to know as well. So, anyways, I just want to share a couple things as we're leading into the show, and that the first just has to do with Bitcoin and how it has just recently crossed, whereas the 21-day moving average has been holding as resistance, that we are starting to develop um, support on top of that resistance. And so we have gained 7%, 6.5% over the last 7 days. And Bitcoin is right now 28,300. And and of course, this is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. I just share with you the things that I'm interested in and things that I think could benefit uh, those of you that look into the things that I've been covering and talking about for years, and crypto and Bitcoin, and the establishment of this medium as investment opportunity is something that I have been talking about for well over since 2017. So, and I do believe that we are going to be moving into a time where momentum will begin to develop, and that we're going to see growth. And we're also approaching the next halving, which historically is catalyst for increased in prices. And that hopefully over the course of this upcoming year, we will return to bullish momentum. So I'm not going to get into all of that because I know a lot of you are not interested in crypto and don't want to hear about it. But there are some that do. And so just a shout out to those of you that are interested. And if you can, with with Coinbase and other platforms, just have a little bit going into it every month, whatever you can spare, even if it's like $10, and just let it build, and don't worry about it, and then see where it is in a year. But good to see everybody, and thank you again for joining us. I do want to share a couple of other things in this. Oh, and I was talking about the great blessing that we have being here in America and having the security and the peace that, even though, again, I know that things are a lot worse than they have been um, since 2020, and especially since 2001, and that many of you are no longer, I'm 53 now, and a lot of you were born after 9/11 and do not even remember the events of that day. And this was a very important catalyst for my awakening. And it has been for many of you that were alive during that time. But recently we just seen how Israel had their, 9/11 event. And that for those that look into and begin to examine the issue, that it's not just government failure which led to the success of the terrorist events of that day. And as I covered in show a week ago, or however long it was, I told you about the history and shared with you the connections between Israel and Hamas, and how Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu specifically, how the Likud party had funded Hamas for over 20 years, and that they built them up financially, and that they utilized them as a way to fight against Yasser Arafat and the Palestinian Liberation Organization, which they considered to be the foremost terrorist group at that time. And it's just so happens that whenever there is a moment for peace to come about, the powers that be, those that do not want and are not going to allow peace. I mean, it's the whole report from Iron Mountain, if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about. This was a study that was put out and talked about by a a think tank, a group of 15 individuals that, were respected for their status, their power, um, and they were brought together and they talked about the benefits of world peace. And they actually decided that peace is not beneficial, especially to those that are funding and equipping both sides of the opposition and that make money from arming groups and minorities and pitting them against one another. And they talked about how the only way that they could end war and allow peace to come forth as prospect was if they were to replace the damage and the culling of the masses that war leads to. And so that's when they decided to do the things that they do in regard to the aerosol injections and poisoning of this and that and food, water, all the other things. And it's so crazy that I have to even be careful here with what I say because we're being listened to and we're being flagged and we're being perfectly um, we are being targeted for the things that we've been talking about and sharing. And it's unfortunate, but we have videos disappearing almost every day. And we're getting flagged as well. And so I it's crazy. But I have to walk on eggshells when I talk to you as a group. And it's unfortunate. I can't even really say what I want to say. And at some point, we're going to, try to move onto a platform. It's just, we're so established and everything's, we're just so familiar with what we do in this regard. And we reach so many of you in this way. But, you know, who, who knows what's going to happen. I do ask that all of you, please pray for us and those that are elsewhere speaking truth. Because right now, the repercussions are digital, but who knows where things are going to go, how things are going to escalate. But let us always remember how blessed we are, how fortunate we are, and how grateful we should be to the Most High for these blessings and for these days of serenity that we can just go outside and hang out and be enveloped by the beauty of the warmth and the coolness of the fall that's moving in. We're about to get all the changes in the colors of the leaves and all the foliage moving from green to oranges and reds and browns and various earth tones, and how remarkable this time of year is with that beauty. And to be able to take walks with our families and hanging out with our grandkids, I mean, what an incredible blessing these things are. And so let's not overlook them and let's realize and let's pray for peace, pray for that, we don't have to go through or see or experience war. Because I really feel for, and there's no, for the citizens, there's no winning for you. And for whatever reason, the governments, they do utilize their connections and their agendas to drive forth and to push for what to us just seems insanity. The murder of innocents, the slaughter of other people. It's just so not right and so not what I would wish for anybody. I just pray that everybody can come up in a time of just joy and peace, and that children are able to be raised in an environment where they're taken care of, they're encouraged, they're allowed to find and develop their interests in whatever it is that is positive and a benefit to world. That's Donna Smith says, I have such a hard time enjoying life when so much sorrow abounds. Definitely counting our blessings, enjoying and grateful for small things. I'm right there with you, Donna, and I think that a lot of people are as well. That especially when others are suffering or people are being killed, it's a heavy burden. And it weighs on, those of us that have been called to be watchmen because we are concerned for the world. We are concerned for others, and we want nothing more than people to be blessed. The whole theme of um, joy and peace and the pursuit of happiness, life, liberty, all of goodwill to men, those are things that we want for everybody. Hello, Penny and True Seeker, Mindy Ash, Brick, good to see you. Tammy George, Watchman 316, 368. We we appreciate all of you. Um 368 says Palestine was called Judea before it got changed in 134 AD. Yes, this was after the Romans destroyed Judea. They named the land Palestine after what were the enemies of the Judeans at that time, which were the Philistines. And so Palestine does come for that. And the Philistines were the giants and the remnants of the giants, like Goliath was a Philistine. He was the champion of those people, and they were always at war with Israel and Judea and the Israelites. Hello, Stephanie. Good to see you, sister. Um, and so that's where the land, and Palestine before the creation of Israel in 1948, the Arabs and the Shemitic peoples, which the Semites are the children of Shem. And Shem was actually the one to whom Noah, when he divided the land, Shem was granted the provision and the blessings of what is now the land of Canaan. And it was Canaan, the ancient land of Canaan. And Canaan was, as you read in the Kebra Nagas in chapter 6, and a lot of people don't know this history, but the Canaanites, which were the children of Ham, from his seeing the nakedness of his father, they were the ones that usurped the land from Shem. They stole the blessings that Shem had been given by Noah. And that's why the Most High, Yahuwah, he made a covenant with Abraham. And he told Abraham that after 400 years, he would bring them back into the land and that they would be given the land once more. And that the Shemites, with Abraham, who was the father of the Hebrews, when they went in, Moshe, was not able to enter into the land because he struck the rock. Um, but there's a prophecy that Moshe will lead those that are numbered with the elect at the end of days into what is New Jerusalem for the millennial reign. And it won't be just he, but Aaron and also Miriam, his sister, which she was a prophetess. And we know Aaron was also blessed. Hello, Zareen, Yellow Eagle. I love your name. And as I had mentioned before, it sounds like that you are one of the native peoples and that myself, I am Apache. Um, Apache, and my mother was Korean. So I have a great respect and honor for the native peoples worldwide. And I do believe that without a doubt, when you look into and examine the links that indigenous people worldwide are part of the lost tribes, and that in ancient times there was a wide exodus that even the giants, which again, uh, the giants, the Philistines, they were the cousins of David. Like Goliath, his mother Orpah was the sister of Naomi, who left the land with Ruth, who married Boaz. So the Arabs and the Israelites, they're all cousins, families. The separated by bloodline and lineage. Um, Ishmael and Isaac, they are also considered to be two different bloodlines and seedlines. No, Tammy, I have not, but I will do so. And so, with regard to, continue, and I'm going to start reading your chats and your comments. So please do post them into the chat room. Elohim says, while in my family too was Southern Texas tribe. We were savages. That's what they call us. Even the name Indian means enemy. And so whenever you have the conquistadors or the conquerors, those that entered into and imprisoned, enslaved other peoples, you have a lot of um, the name of the lands and the names of the people being derogatory. And so that's the history of a lot of these names. That's why people don't like to be called by um, these derogatory terms. And that's why the Native Americans, they don't want to be called Indians, because when you call them that, you're basically, calling them enemies. Watchman 316 says Kuramio Aha does the most research on the indigenous peoples, being the lost tribes of the Hebrews. Well, thank you for that. Never heard of the individual, but I'm going to look into it. And also, we know that Gary Wayne is also working on a book. Had been before he started working on the Genesis 6, and he covers the lost tribes as well. So there's a lot of information coming forth about. Even my friend Zach Mason has done a lot of focus and research on this, and will be sharing um, these kinds of things. Keys to the Truth asks, what's your take on the current situation in the Middle East, particularly the role of Israel? That's a really great question. And I'm going to ask those of you that are interested and want to know more about this situation to examine the work that Stephen Ben Noon and Yana Ben Noon of Israeli News Live that they've been bringing forth. They are of Stephen Ben Noon. His ancestry is connected to the Jewish people, but he, without a doubt, he puts himself at risk in order to share the truth. And he has done the best assessment over the past couple of days. Um, I did a show, again last week, where I covered how it is that historically many of the intelligence agencies, they have funded and supported and created the opposition groups. And they did so, like, for instance, the CIA through the Pakistani ISI, they funded the creation of the Taliban and also Al Qaeda. That Osama bin Laden was an operative for the CIA, and that his family was well respected, and that he had relationships with George Bush and his family, and had even given uh, Bush his first $1 million to start his own company, which was an oil company. And when you look at the history of the Bush family, they were um, they were selling iron, I believe, or metal to the Nazis. Prescott Bush, uh, George H.W.'s father, George Bush's grandfather, Prescott Bush, he was forced and told by Congress to quit interacting with and making money from the sale of goods to Nazi Germany. And he was given $2 million by Congress in order to stand down and to quit with what he was involved in. And so there's been a lot of historical precedents where the Bush family has been involved in uh, connections to terrorism. And George H.W. Bush was, or Herbert Walker, he was the head of the CIA during the assassination of John Kennedy as well. And so, with regard to Israel, um, and others have asked me, should we support as America does, because America has unyielding support for Israel. And it's my opinion that in the same way that the shadow government um, duped the American citizens into supporting the war of terror and on terror that began with 9/11, that there was some form of the shadow government which made the American military stand down, and that allowed the attacks and the events of that day to go forward, and that this would be a catalyst for the war on terrorism, which Dick Cheney said would not end in our lifetime. That in the same regard, that Israel also stood down and prevented the IDF from stopping Hamas from infiltrating and crossing the border and slaughtering their citizens. And this isn't just my opinion, but many know this to be the truth. And there's been a lot of voices from inside Israel, rabbis, people that have served in the IDF, that talk about the border security and how Israel has the most highly advanced technology when it comes to securing the border and preventing terrorism, that there's no way those attacks took place without their foreknowledge. And so, in the same way that, again, America, during the events of 9/11, that this was, this was Israel's 9/11, that all of those people, the slaughter of those children, um, it's on the governments and those that are in charge. And I do believe that those facets which utilize terrorism as their jack in the box in order to drive an agenda to push for the New World Order, that they are a synagogue of Satan. And so, should we be supporting the synagogue of Satan? That's the question you have to ask yourself. And I, in no manner, blame the people in the same way that I did not blame the American people for the attacks of that day or for them getting angry and wanting to take revenge. Even though ignorance, when you do not have the facts and you don't understand really what's going on and how you're being led astray and duped into supporting something that you don't understand, and that the people that joined the military and that wanted to crack down on terrorism and go get the terrorists like Pat Tillman, who gave up his NFL contract to join the special forces, when he found out the truth, he was shot, he was killed, and to quiet his voice. And now they're in Israel, they've brought forth, that if you go against public opinion and that you stir up or cause, um, some kind of, you go against public opinion, that you could be locked up. And just recently, we had where the hospital in Gaza was struck, and that this was blamed on Hamas. When Stephen Benoon, he did an assessment, and he showed how Hamas does not have weaponry or rockets that can take down a building like that or kill 500 people. They're, making rockets in their garage and shooting them across the border. And yeah, they're doing this hundreds at a time. But if somebody does get hit, uh, and not saying that they can't kill people because they can, and they are terrorists, but again, they're being used and they were supported and funded by Israel, by the Likud party for over 20 years. And this is fact. This is not even disputable. And so you have to know the truth of the false left right paradigm, which is why I did the show that I did a week ago, to show you and to confirm with you, to give you a number of confirming witnesses as to how it is that governments fund and support, the terrorism and terroristic groups, radical, fanatical extremism in order to drive their agenda. And so I support the people of Israel, and especially those that know and understand the truth of Zionism and how it is that they, like Albert Pike in the letter to Giuseppe Mazzini, of how they need to foment these three world wars as pretext to bring forth this one world order. This is all leading to the coming of the Antichrist and to what Daniel speaks about as the coming of the beast kingdom. And so don't be deceived. Know and understand truth so that you won't get duped into supporting one or the other side and getting caught up in supporting the slaughter of innocents and the destruction of children. Because it's my opinion that the Most High supports life and wants us to support life. But all of what is happening is prophetic. And there is a war between bloodlines, lineages, the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. But you have to understand again as to who synagogue of Satan is and how they are working behind the scenes. They are Oz behind the mask. That when it's convenient, they allow things to happen. And when it's convenient, they crack down on things that happen. And, the attacks on ambulances and hospitals and schools, in the same way that Russia did in Ukraine. If you look at the history of war, this is exactly what America did in Iraq as well. The destruction of police stations, um, that they destroy emergency services, infrastructure, the power grid, and this causes a lot of suffering. And so, it's nothing new as far as, and it's always the people that suffer, the children that suffer, mothers, grandmothers, and it's unfortunate because, again, they are using Hamas as an excuse. And it's only going to get worse because they're about to enter in on the ground, and who knows what kind of destruction is going to take place from all that. All right, Penny asked a question. Someone was saying that Jerusalem was turning out to be Mystery Babylon. What do you think, Zen? That's a great question. And I've talked about and I've answered this question previously. And it's my opinion that Mystery Babylon is not just one particular nation, but that the New World Order, the one world system, this is Mystery Babylon. And Mystery Babylon, in my opinion, the we as America, the hammer of the nations, described in Jeremiah chapter 50 and 51, nation of unwalled villages, that we are the military arm of Mystery Babylon. That London is the financial portion, and that Rome, Vatican, they are the religious aspect. And they're the ones that are trying to unite all the religions of the world into one, Chrislam. And we know, those of us that are believers in Messiah, we know that Christ is the only way, the truth, and the light. And those that deny him as Messiah, they are what is called in scripture as Antichrist. And so, again, don't be duped into believing just one portion of truth. You have to understand it in its fullness. And I believe that the beast kingdom, the beast system, it's going to be 10 nations, as the United Nations also speaks about. And also that BRICS, the which is creating an alternative currency, um, that they are also part of the New World Order. And so it's not just BRICS, it's not just the United Nations, but really it's all the nations of the world. It's the government, the power structure, and it's those that print the money, the International Monetary Fund, um, that lend the money to central banks, that fund debt to various third world nations, that force the leaders of those countries to put their people into debt and then force the GDP to pay paid out on the interest of the money that has been largely given to the rulers and the leaders of these countries, and it's just squandered. These, like Amelia Marcos, and in the Philippines, things like that. This is happening everywhere. Saddam Hussein, uh, it's always like that. That they set up some puppet on a string to put the people in the debt and force them to have to pay it back. And it's basically enslavement, and that's the way they do it. Um, uh, the book that we wrote, the protocols, this the Illuminati secret covenant and the protocols. In my opinion, again, this book is the key. It also talks about the false left right paradigm. And that was the basis for the show that I did just a week ago, where I covered and read, about the illusion of choice and the false opposition. Okay. All right. Cecil asks, any research on the lost tribes being in Tartaria? That's a really good question as well. And yes, I do think that certain factions and portions, uh, and Cecil, you have to look to the work that I've done on the Thracian Chronicles and how the Thracian Chronicles themselves speak about how the Thracian people, they were a world empire 1500 years before the Sumerians even came about in Mesopotamia, and that they were the children of Japheth, one of the sons of Noah. Tyrus in the Genesis 10, the table of nations, and that Thracian, they were Christians. They were knowledgeable and they worshiped a triune Godhead, which included the feminine Holy Spirit. And I've covered this in great detail in the two books that I just released on wisdom, the Holy Spirit being the feminine aspect of the Godhead. And so go check out all of that. Oh, I'm going to take a sip of water here for a second. Be right back. All right, we got 3 minutes till break. I'll take one more question. But let me just elaborate on what you asked, Cecil. So the Thracians also confirmed that Christianity and the knowledge of Christ, the belief in the Word, the Lamb, and they called him the Lamb that would take away the sins of the world, that our faith was not based or plagiarized from the Sumerian pagan teachings, but that in truth, the knowledge of Christ, the virgin birth, the immaculate conception, all of these things were tenets that were known and shared within the ancient teachings, the Thracian Chronicles, before any of the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Sumerian teachings, the Lost Book of Enki, before any of that. And so go check out, and we have a whole playlist on this, on the Thracian Chronicles. And Stig just asked me earlier today where we were on those translations. And I'll be reaching out to them to find out. And I'll get back with all of you and let you know and catch you up on, how all of that is going. And we got 1 minute till break. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that. I'm just trying to share truth, and I want you to understand it in a way that you can explain it to other people and not let, people get caught up in deception. So many people are left or right, Democrat or Republican, and they don't understand that, it's two sides of the same coin. It's all a dog and pony show. Please do go check out that show I did blowback on the connections of Israel and Hamas. We'll be right back, everyone, for second hour.
I love motherhood more than I could have ever imagined. One of the most important things to me is nurturing a strong foundation in Yahusha's character in our children. That said, I made sheets that went over the fruits of the Spirit, the armor of God, the 10 Commandments, and creation days. Each day at breakfast, we would go over these and then read books like Cat in the Hat that just felt so void in meaning, but they loved the rhymes. I looked everywhere for rhyming biblical principles and couldn't find any. That's when I decided I would make them myself. Praise God, we now have our first book, Eliana and Ezra's Journey Through the Fruits of the Spirit, a first in a series. Every morning we now can continue to build strong principles even through rhymes, and I wanted to offer it to the babies in your life too. Please go to Sacred Word Publishing and search Fruits of the Spirit to get your copy, or you can go to prophecyforchildren.com. Thank you so much.
As a bookstore for truth seekers, it's our goal to make ancient manuscripts which were once held captive by secretive institutions available for public consideration. In our generation, where wisdom has increased as Daniel the prophet foretold, we have access to many of the testimonies our early church brethren were persecuted for preserving. After being hidden for centuries, these manuscripts have been leaked from various sources throughout the earth, and it's our goal to gather these sources into printable form to make available for all who seek the ancient way. If you're looking to deepen your studies of the biblical narrative, find these ancient manuscripts and more at sacredwordpublishing.com. Your partnership with Sacred Word Publishing goes further than the publishing of ancient manuscripts and weekly video content.
You also make a huge impact across the earth in orphanages in Myanmar, India, Uganda, and Kenya.
Your support is crucial for the development of the ecclesia of real truth seekers.
We thank you for joining us in hosting Secrets Revealed, Momentary Zen, the Digital Readers Club, Ask Me Anything series, and other shows that have helped lead so many to the truth of salvation.
To become even more involved, please visit patreon.com/sacredwordpublishing, where you can partake in exclusive, interactive, patron-only content and help us continue shining the light of love in this darkened world.
Denial is not a choice anymore. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the number one listener supported radio station on the planet, not giving up. Revolution Radio. All right. Thanks for listening while we take that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And now we're going to get back to your host.
All right, welcome back, everybody, for our second hour. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Momentary Zen here on Revolution Radio. And, I was just listening to that last commercial break, and my good friend Nighthawk, who had invited me to join the Revolution Radio broadcasting team so very long ago. He had passed away. I think it's been four or 5 years now. But just listening to the commercials, and that is his voice. We still have it on and sharing it, and how ahead of his time he was. Speaking about truth and talking about the system and the Orwellian, even with the different movies and quotes that he would share in regard to truth. And here we are. There was a time, because I think it's been since like 2008, 2009 that I've been broadcasting on this platform. But the things that he used to say, they weren't yet real. We weren't there yet. And how over a decade, a little more than that, how everything is now all in our face, and how, the Constitution has been decimated. Free speech, we now have free speech zones. It's like you're not able to say what you want anywhere. And now they've turned it into, when you do share truth, that this is considered to be hate speech. Or like, some of the things that we've talked about this evening, in which again, I am not against any people, that I believe truly that most people, except the children of the devil, the sons of the serpent, that most people are good at heart, and that they want nothing but the best for others. And they would never dream of hurting a child, or of cracking down on a child or its mother, or even its father, or men that are of military age. Nobody would even dream of cracking down on individuals for things that other people have done in their name, even if it was something like murder. We're not people are responsible for their own actions. And you can't just go out and slaughter others, decimate others for things that other people have done. That is not justice, and that's just not right. That's like, false accusation, or uh, worse than false accusation. And, we are protected by the commandments and also by habeas corpus from being unfairly accused and prosecuted. Criminals are protected from cruel and unusual punishment according to the Constitution. And so, I think that the whole mindset of we should just slaughter a people or a nation or, others for something that somebody else did, that we have to be very careful with such mindset, because the synagogue of Satan understands how raw emotion and how terrorism, especially the slaughter of children, like, they are saying that some kids were beheaded, and I I've heard this repeated, but I'm not seeing any evidence and really don't want to, and I pray that this isn't the truth, but that, this was done during when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, that the daughter of the Kuwaiti ambassador, she got before Congress and said that the babies were, removed from their incubators and thrown on the ground. And so, this kind of thing does elicit raw emotion and causes people to want to take revenge at all costs. And so we have to be careful with where we are led. When watching the news, because again, the media sensationalizes and uses propaganda in order to solicit a certain response. The whole problem, reaction, solution. Watchman 316 says, those that call Christians infidels and goyim are at war with innocents in the Middle East. Yeah, I do agree that, and especially in Islam, they call jihad, war against the infidels, that jihad is a holy war, which I find to be really a contradiction. I mean, war, in my opinion, there's, uh, unless it's the Most High cracking down on evil, but just, again, people attacking others for their beliefs or slaughtering innocents for things that other people have done. We just have to be careful. Tammy George says they found out it's not true. I'm guessing that this was about maybe the beheading of the children, and Yeah, again, like the Kuwaiti, the ambassador of the daughter saying that when it comes to children, people are protective, and I don't blame them. I cannot even imagine if I don't even want to think about it. But my children, my grandchildren, and anybody's child for that matter. Um, I just pray, again for harmony in the restoration of peace and security. And I pray for all those that are. Good point, Jashan. Jason says, don't forget about the SEAL team that was in the helicopter that killed Osama bin Laden. Um, yeah, they say that Osama bin Laden was killed, but they don't. There was no proof actually, you know, released to affirm this. And with him being the most wanted man in American history, and you would think that they would offer up. I mean, the way that David, when he came back with the head of Goliath, now here's the trophy of my killing this Philistine giant that had been boasting and terrorizing our country for 40 days. You know, that they would offer up that kind of evidence, but no, they said they buried him at sea. There was no evidence. I mean, come on. But yes, the team that was said to have killed him were killed in a helicopter crash. And in my opinion, these kind of things are done in order to cover up the truth and anybody speaking about it. In whatever way, form the truth takes on and is verified as real, uh, we're not privy to such knowledge, and that the powers that be always cover up the what is the truth of the real story. 368 Zen, Israel is supposed to be from the river Nile to the river Euphrates. I do believe that is correct, but I'm not 100% positive. I, Moshe was allowed to see, and also Abraham, and so they were given the knowledge of the Holy Land and given the borders and allowed to see the extremes of it. So I would refer to that for the exact dimensions and borders and territory. Penny says the show The False Left Right Paradigm was excellent, a must watch, 5x even. Thank you, Penny. I appreciate that. And I would hope that people would review it and listen to it, because I do believe it will help people to not get caught up in the sensationalism that is the propaganda of the mainstream news. Because even now, they're blaming Hamas for the attacks on the Gaza hospital, when, it seems a certainty to me that it is some state, and I'm not blaming anybody, but without a doubt is somebody that has a military, an army, and the power to cause destruction in that manner that um, that was behind the occurrence. Jashan says, nothing is what it seems. We live in a world of lies. And that is the truth. You know, that is the truth of it, is that we can't trust anything. And 2015 was a big eye opener for me in this regard, because that's when the whole theme of biblical cosmology came to light. And I had taken astronomy in school. And at that time, I was going to Georgia State. And we had some of the best um, telescopes. We were able to utilize some of the most awesome, powerful observatories. And we looked at, the planets in the skies, the Saturn and Jupiter and all these things and other phenomenon. And I believe I knew and understood how the world and the so-called solar system, I believed I knew how those things worked, and I understood the dynamics. And I even wrote about, poems and poetry talking about just the incredible uh, how it is that, or how it was, or how I thought that, the earth to be the perfect distance away from the sun to be in what we call the Goldilocks zone. And how, the sun and the moon were perfect distance away from each other in order to cause the lunar and solar eclipse. I used to write about really poetically, metaphorically, about all these things, and now I know them all to be a lie. And that the whole solar system, and that the Earth is one of 9 planets which is moving in orbit around the sun, that all of this was a lie. And that we live on a globe, and that, oceans curve, and that water adheres to a ball. It's all a lie. So think about this: 97%, if not more, people in the world buy into and believe a lie that the earth is spherical, when it's very easy to determine that curvature is non existent, and that water will settle in, will settle and always is flat to the horizon. And that when the sun sets on the ocean, you will see a pillar of light from where it is reaching the vanishing point all the way to your eye on the beach, if that's where you are observing it from. And there's no break in that beam of light that is dancing on the waves of the ocean. There's no curvature. And the light is a steady pillar from where the sun is disappearing, having reached the vanishing point. And they've also, shown that a plane that follows and chases the sun remains at the same altitude, and that it will remain forever in view as long as you keep following it. In the same manner that if you take a level on a plane, you will realize that the only time a plane is um, going up or down is on takeoff and landing, and that it will remain level the rest of the way through the flight. It's not dipping its nose towards the curvature. And so, I mean, this was huge. Just think of how big this is. That the whole cosmology, what we believe to be the universe that we live in, that all of this is a myth, it's a fabrication, and it's a lie. And if we don't even know where we are and how to make sense of what we see around us, how it is that the sun moves in a circle above um, the earth and is spinning around Polaris, that it is one of, you know, 6 other so called planets, along with the moon, Venus, Saturn, Mars, um, Jupiter, that these are the so called planets which are moving in circle around Polaris, and they're not circling around the sun. I mean, we have been lied to about so much, and we understand so little. And how is it that we think we are the most knowledgeable creature here on the earth? At least I would think that the creatures understand uh, a lot better than we do with regard to what's happening with the creation, because we certainly can't make sense of it. A truth seeker in the service says, I thought Mystery Babylon was the Vatican. I do think the Vatican is the religious aspect of what is Mystery Babylon, but I think Mystery Babylon is larger and that America is a portion of that. And I think that New York, in Revelation 17 and 18, the city of the kings, where all the merchants weep, I think that is America that is being described, as it is in Jeremiah chapter 50 and 51, the hammer of the nations, that we are the military arm of Mystery Babylon. And because of our being the bully, we've been a bully to so many nations. We've attacked so many people, and we put our nose into everything that, and I hate to say this because I don't want this to happen, but just as, what happened in Israel with Hamas being allowed into the country to slaughter the innocents, this is going to come home to America. The only difference is, thank God, that American citizens have the right to bear arms and that many people can protect themselves and have the capacity to do so. And that it's not going to be just easy, like, picking people off the way that they were able to do there or as they would do in other countries. People are going to fight here. And when you invade, especially if a group like that, um, people are going to stand up for themselves and for their families and their loved ones. And I would hope that neighbors are, they will reach out to each other to inform one another and to protect each other. But I do believe without a doubt that terrorists are being allowed to cross the border even right now. And that this kind of thing is being plotted and set up. And it's unfortunate. But because, my children and my grandkids live here. I don't want anything to happen to any of them or any of you or your kids or your grandkids. But I know that this kind of thing is being plotted. And so just be on your toes, be prepared. Because, in the scriptures also, where it says, thou shalt not kill, that's not the actual translation. It says, thou shalt not murder in the more ancient manuscripts. And that makes much more sense because we are allowed to protect ourselves and our families and to have no affiliation with evil, but to fight against it. And so, just a warning. I don't want, this kind of thing to happen, and I pray it doesn't. But, these are the kind of things that are revealed in the protocols and that are spoken about. And I do think that someday the chicken's going to come home to roost. Mama P says London, Rome, and Washington, D.C., the three legs of the New World Order beast system. Financial, religious, and DC is military. And yes, I do agree with you, Mama P. That's the way I see it as well. And as I said, Mystery Babylon it's not just one nation or one people. That the synagogue of Satan has many masks. It's not, they wear all masks and they utilize the boogeyman. They'll pull it from uh, wherever they can and have it wear, whatever mask is convenient for the time to enrage whatever people they are trying to solicit a response from. Stephen Flower says a double-sided snow globe with a flat plane. Yeah, I do see it that way, but as far as I don't, believe the Earth to be spherical, like there being a southern pole. I much see it as like a pizza, and I don't know as to the limits because we know the Antarctic Circle, the ends of the Earth, that this is the limits as to where the sun can reach, and that there are mountains of ice that have come up and that they are 200 300 feet tall at the perimeter, but there are maps which show land beyond. There's that Buddhist map that was found in a monastery. It was 1,000-year-old map, and so we don't know the truth because they're not allowing people to explore past the Antarctic perimeter. So, until somebody does. But there are historical records that speak about there being openings and that there are peoples, cultures, and civilizations beyond which others have been in contact with and have written stories about and shared those kind of things with the world, like Smoky God and other stories. The Inventio Fortunata. Stephen says Isaiah 12L, the Hebrew word 410, the Almighty God is my Yeshua. The Hebrew word 3444, which is salvation. And yes, that is, um, I also honor and give praise to the motherly aspect of the Godhead, the Trinity, which is the Holy Spirit. But Yah's salvation, Yahushua, he is the only begotten. He is the Word, the Memra, the Lord, the King, the Savior, the Messiah. And then the Father, Yahuwah, which Yahuwah in pictographic is behold the hand, behold the nail, which is again a reference to the Son. And to the sacrifice that was made on the cross for the sins of the world and to redeem us, to restore all of us to our first estate. Jason says, not all our history, a part in the middle called the Dark Ages. Around those times, it was the Dark Ages for them. I do believe that we are not privy to a lot of things that have happened. Like, for instance, the Tartarian, the Thracian Empire, we're, we're not given insight, or those things are not recorded in history, they're not shared. And that only the Thracian Chronicles bring forth the knowledge of these people in this past, and how it was that Christianity as a faith was a predominant and was settled and spread, that the Thracian people, which again they preceded the Sumerian by 1500 to 2000 years, the sons of Japheth, they lived and from what was uh, Portugal and Spain all the way across Europe through the Middle East and to the far eastern Asian, Indo-Asian frontier. And this, they had established an empire at that time, and that the knowledge, Orpheus, the Thracian priest king, he was led by the word of the Lord, the Lamb of God, to the discovery of what were the ancient tablets that had been hidden by Noah in clay jars, and which had been buried in an ancient ruin. And he was led there to dig them up, to rediscover them. And he was given the knowledge, the insight of how to translate them, how to understand them, so that he could read them and share them with his people. In the same way as I shared with the revelation of the Magi just recently, that they too were given this knowledge and that they were able to make sense of what was found in the ancient testimonies of the Cave of Treasures. And this was also what had happened to Abraham when he was led to the discovery of the ancient writings of his forefathers, which we know that Abraham, he was brought up in Babylon, and that Aramaic and that the language of the forefathers, the Edenic language, the Hebrew, that this was lost. But in Jubilees chapter 12, verse 19 or 29, somewhere around thereabouts, that he was given the insight and the knowledge to read the Hebrew in the same way that Joseph was by the Holy Spirit, blessed with the knowledge of how to read and interpret the languages. Okay. Donna Smith questions any thoughts on Las Vegas. That's a broad and general question. If you're asking about uh, the the terrorist attack that went down during Jason Aldean's concert, I just saw something that Stephen Ben Noon had talked about, how this was also connected to an American arm of Hamas. And he was talking about a video that he had made where he explained that. And I hadn't seen the video, but I do want to look it up because, again, I believe that we cannot have a war on terrorism and have open borders. It just doesn't make sense. And it doesn't work. And if you don't understand that the government is and allowing for these kind of things to happen and that they're preparing for, and really there would be many more such events and occurrences if it weren't for the good people, the sheriffs and deputies and the FBI and other forces that are actually fighting against the orchestration of these kind of events, that we're being protected in that way from the unfolding of these kind of massacres. But a lot of the school shootings and all that, they many of them are inside jobs as well. So you know um so I don't know exactly what you're asking, Donna, but that's the comment. All right, Dayton Rogers says that that's the whole problem. You hit it. They of world, I have Christ believing brothers that their blood boils, and they call me an idiot for speaking on earth and Israel. They, the ones that love Zion, Zionism, and yet are blind. That's the problem, Dayton, because I've lost a lot of friends, and I've been attacked, and I've been accused for a very long time for not supporting Synagogue of Satan. And when I say Synagogue of Satan, I'm basically speaking about the governmental structure of all the nations of the world, and also the central banks that use the Ponzi scheme of money to fund the terrorism that we were told that the Federal Reserve System, which was put into place in 1913. Think about this. Just a few years later, we have World War One, then we have World War Two, and World War Three, which we are, I believe, embroiled in right now. That Albert Pike, Giuseppe Mazzini, and others, they speak about how the establishment, Zionism, the establishment of Israel, which I still believe was without a doubt God ordained. Nothing can happen without the blessings of the Most High. But this was also a conspiracy that they would use this as a catalyst to bring on what is shared in prophecy, namely that Jerusalem would be a cup of trembling amongst the nation. And also, which I guess I should read it. With how the establishment of this would lead to the creation of the war between the Zionists and the fanatical Muslims, which were also funded and which were also created by, like, I'm looking for it, by America during the Soviet war in Afghanistan. So let me just read this really quickly, and we'll end the show with this as well. If you're not familiar, the letter from Albert Pike to Giuseppe Mazzini, which Giuseppe Mazzini was the head of the Italian mafia, and the Freemasons, the secret societies, the secret brotherhoods, they are the agent provocateurs, which are spoken about in the protocols of the learned elders of Zion. So here's what it says. The First World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati to overthrow the power of the czars in Russia and making that country a fortress of atheistic communism. The divergences caused by the agenture of the Illuminati between the British and the Germanic empires will be used to foment this war. At the end of the war, communism will be built and used to destroy the other governments and in order to weaken religions. The Second World War. The Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. The war must be brought about so that Nazism is destroyed and that the political Zionism be strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel in Palestine. During the Second World War, international communism must become strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which would be then restrained and held in check until the time when we would need it for this final social cataclysm. And so World War I and World War II were planned, yes. And the creation of Israel. And the creation of Israel, where it says in Zechariah 12, Jerusalem will be a cup of trembling amongst the nations. It would be the catalyst for what is spoken about here in regard to the Third World War. It says this. The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agenture of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, or Ishmael, the seed of the serpent, and political Zionism, the state of Israel, or the seed of Jacob, Isaac, mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. Can you say $33 trillion in debt? We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, the origin of savagery and of the most bloody turmoil. Is this not what we're seeing in Ukraine and in Israel, and which will come home to roost at some point? Then everywhere the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries will exterminate those destroyers of civilization. And the multitude disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal but without knowing where to render adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in public view. And so the destruction of Zionism and extreme Muslim, the Islamic world, as it says here, and Christianity by the nihilists and the atheists is going to lead to what they believe will be the open acceptance of Luciferianism, the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer brought finally out in public view. Now, is this not exactly connected to what the Bible speaks about as the coming reign of the Antichrist? Is not the Antichrist Satan, Lucifer, the light bearer, the the one that the Freemasons, the secret societies worship and thank for giving them free will and bringing them out of the enslavement of the Godhead? That's what they teach. That's what they share. And that's what they're working towards. And does this not exactly align with what Lucifer said in Isaiah 14 of I will exalt my throne above the stars and the clouds of God, and I will be like the Most High? This is exactly the purpose, the catalyst, the reason for what is the New World Order. It's not to bring forth world government, that's just a part of it. World government is in order to establish the reign of the Antichrist and to bring forth the beast system and to bring forth the strong delusion which says that the ancient aliens are our creators. That's what it says. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds, and I will be like the Most High. But that's not according to what God says. God says, yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee. saying, "Is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake the kingdoms, that made the world as a wilderness and destroyed the cities thereof, that opened not the house of his prisoners? All the kings of the nations, even all of them lie in glory, every one in his own house. But thou art cast out of thy grave like an abominable branch, and as the raiment of those that are slain thrust through with a sword that go down to the stones of the pit, as a carcass trodden under feet. Thou shalt not be joined with them in burial, because thou hast destroyed thy land and slain thy people. The seed of evildoers shall never be renowned. He is the abominable branch. The seed of the evildoers are his children. God says, prepare slaughter for his children, for the iniquity of their fathers, that they do not rise, nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the world with cities. For I will rise up against them, saith the Lord of hosts, and cut off from Babylon the name, the remnant, the son, and the nephew, saith the Lord. And so God is telling you that those that are behind evil, Lucifer, Satan, Hallel, the son of the morning, he's the one behind the destruction of the cities. Does it not say in the scriptures that Damascus will become a heap of ruins? Hasn't this been fulfilled in our time? Do you know that Israel just bombed the airports in Syria, both in Damascus and Aleppo? I'm sorry that I didn't get to the rest of your questions. I will make a copy and I'll try to bring them up again in the next show. But again, I do appreciate all of you. I thank you for listening in. I'm so grateful that you know the truth and that you can share it with others and that you're not going to get caught up in the animosity that people are, they get so crazy with the sensationalism and they attack us for sharing the truth when they are caught up in ignorance. And it's unfortunate because it's that deceit that is allowing them to be led astray. And so you're welcome, Tammy George. She says, thank you, Zen, for sharing. I love and appreciate all of you. Donna says, shalom, brethren. Great show. Thank you so much for the clarity. Abba El, bless and keep you and your loved ones. Thank you. Thank you to Mindy Ash. God bless all of you. Watchman 316, will you do a Discord Ask Anything? I really don't have time to do another more on top of what I'm already doing. I will do more Ask Me Anythings. So once a month, we do them right here. But I don't have time to do more than what I'm already doing. I'm already can't even keep up with all that I am doing. Thank you, Brick. I appreciate you. Yes, we know too much to be fooled. And, the scriptures say, my people are killed for lack of truth. And that is the truth of the matter. So let us not be one of those. And let us be the watchmen and the watchmen standing up for truth. Pamela Evans, thank you, Zen. I'm so grateful for you and all of you. We're so glad that you're here. Paladin, Michelle, Truth Seeker in Service. Thank you, all of you. Mundo Geodesico, welcome, and God bless you as well. Thank you again, everybody. Have a blessed night. We'll see you tomorrow. I've got a great show lined up for you tomorrow. You got to come and check it out. It's going to be awesome. Be blessed. Good night. Shalom.